All right, so we just talked about the story of an hour, and now we're gonna write it. We're gonna talk about the adulterous woman. A couple of things. Look, if you did not watch the story of an hour video, watch that first before this one. Okay, there's spoilers, and I'm constantly referring back to the story of an hour with the adulterous woman. Okay, a couple of things you need to understand. Albert Camus. He was a philosopher before he was a writer. He writes stories, but his core is a philosopher. He's a philosopher, all right? Stories tell his ideas. He's an existentialist. Existentialist. I misspelled that at some point. Existentialist something. All right? He's about, his whole philosophy is about existing on earth, all right, without God in mind, all right? He is fundamentally against suicide. He says suicide is the most unphilosophical thing you can ever do to your life, all right? The one thing that everyone should always be doing is trying to survive, all right? It makes no logical sense to me. So, and that's important to understand this story because he is essentially rewriting story of an hour, the one that we just read, all right? It's as if he read it and he did not like Kate Chopin's take on women in life, and so he's going to rewrite it. Wow. Okay, Albert Camus, the man. Thank you for telling women that Kate Chopin's perspective is not the right one for women to have, and that you, a man, is going to mansplain how married women should see their lives. Okay. Okay. And I'm saying lives because, not lives, because these are individual lives. Okay, so I like that term much better than, because we have one life and these are each individual lives. Okay, even though of course I know people like lives, but to me that doesn't make sense. All right, so the adulterous woman. We have here, in case you didn't read this, or spoiler, she never has an affair. There's no affair in this. There's no adultery. There's no affair. So I'll explain the ending at the end. No affair. All right. Oh, it begins with a housefly, and the housefly is representing of her, the female character, which is a housewife. Okay, and her name is Janeane. So we're gonna be referring to her as Janeane. Okay, Janeane is married to a guy, Marcel. Marcel is a baby. Marcel oftentimes equals, he gets personified as a infant, a child, and then also just a lump of wood. I mean, just sort of like, almost like dormant. Okay. A pouting fawn, all right? But he's also vacant, all right? He's very absent, okay? All right, we're going to skip through some of this. All right, so right here, we have some of this background information, okay? She used to be a gymnast, all right? She was independent. She was an accomplished gymnast. She had an independent life, all right? She was strong. She was independent. But then Marcel came along, and he's not described as being this great looker. He is shorter than she, Protruding eyes, that's not cool. No one wants that. He was very eager, and so she didn't necessarily. She was above him. All right, but But because she was above him, all right, he showed her a lot of. He put a lot of effort in. Okay, she liked being loved. He pursued her. He was appreciative of her. All right, she was out of his league, and he showered her with attentions, but so often making her aware that she existed for him. All right, and by making it, then he made her exist in reality. All right, so his attention to her made her gave her self-worth. So his attention led to her self-worth. Okay, but then we have the problems, though. Okay. So after they had gotten married, nothing had happened as she had expected, which is oftentimes the case. It's very sad. All right. Let's see. Okay. He was going to be a lawyer, but instead, though, he took over the business from his parents. His parents essentially had a goods business, all right? And they sold goods. And so he took that over. And with that in mind is that he became extremely focused. Nothing seemed to interest Marcel but business. Which means this. Look. Beforehand, his attention gave her self-worth. Everything he did back in college was for her. All right. But then now she realized that she discovered his true passion was money. Okay. So if his attention gave her self-worth, all right, his non-attention gave her no self-worth. All right, and so she eventually abandoned herself. She abandoned herself, and she lived many years not really being happy. No, his non-attention, Leonard's feeling no self-worth. Okay. And this line right here, I tell you what, to me, this line is the most important line I think, for all men to really understand the hardships of women and how women find themselves in these very terribly compromising situations that lead to harassment and assault, and even though it's not necessarily at a physical or through a violent means, but this line that where he was telling her, he wanted her to do something. It doesn't matter what he wanted her to do. He just wanted her to do something, and he was obstinate, and she had accepted because it would have taken too much energy to refuse. This idea that even though she kept saying no, 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 I don't want to, and he kept pushing until finally she consented. And this is how, this one line, to go, real deep, is that this is how so many women feel sexually manipulated, where the men aren't physically raping, but they keep pressuring the woman until they almost essentially force her to give consent, where these women eventually consent because they keep saying, they lose the energy to keep saying no, and then later they regret it. And this is power dynamics, men just kind of wearing women down to the point where finally they accept just because it's been taking so much energy to keep refusing. And so she finds herself constantly just being a pawn in his life, a life in which at first he had wanted to give her, but now she is just being carried along like a bird in a cage, all right, or a doll in a house, all right. And so here we have they go to a room, and this is just like in the Story of an Hour, where she goes to a room as well, okay? And she entered the hotel, the manager, blah, 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 blah. All right. So when she gets into her room, unlike the room from the Story of an Hour, which has a nice comfortable roomy chair and a nice window that's open, you can smell the rain and the spring life and all that kind of good stuff. All right. They go to her room, and there's an iron bed, which is cold. Okay, there is a wash basin covered in sand and dust. She was shivering. The room was cold. Let's see. There was a window in her room, like in Miss Mallard's room, but it was just a slit. It was barely open. It was open up to the sky. She was waiting, but she didn't know what for. All right. I mean, this is very similar to the Story of an Hour, where she was waiting for something, but not for. She was aware only of her solitude and of the penetrating cold and the greater weight of the rain of her heart. She was in fact dreaming, almost deaf to the sounds rising from the street, which is just like in the Story of an Hour, where there is noises rising from the street as well. But of course, those things that were rising from the street were positive. But in here, though, it was not. But distant out there, though, she could hear in the distance, all right, the sound of a river coming. It wasn't here yet. It's not like the rain. Remember, water is salvation. So this is the idea of potential salvation. Potential salvation. It's not here yet. This is foreshadowing. All right. She could hear the gentle ripples of waters become a hissing of waves. She imagined beyond the walls a sea of erect, flexible palm trees unfurling in the storm. All right. Now, we definitely get some sexual imagery here, which links us to the Story of an Hour also. A sea of erect, flexible palm trees unfurling in the storm. Nothing was like what she had expected. That phrase is almost word for word again as before. Nothing is what she had expected it. But those invisible waves refreshed her tired eyes. She was standing heavy with dangling arms, slightly stooped. All right, so this right here is similar to how Miss Mallard experienced an orgasm in her room. Okay, Janeane does not, but it hints at one. It foreshadows something positive. But right now, it's not it. The next several pages is her with her husband talking once again about how her. It just continues to reinforce this idea that they don't have a great marriage. He controls her. There's a point where she wants water, but he tells her not to eat not to drink the water, drink the wine. But she doesn't want the wine because the wine makes her drowsy. And he's like, "Oh well, the water's bad." And that's important too, because water equals salvation. And so, but he doesn't want to give her that. He doesn't want to let her have the thing that supports life. He wants to keep her loopy with the wine. I mean, she even questions herself, why did I come? All right, why am I even here. Let's see if I can find that spot. All right. So this towards the end of the story. If you read it, you know that she went to the rooftop at one point, and she saw way out in the desert these nomads that were out there, and that made her feel she felt connected to them for some reason. And Marcel had pulled her away and took her back downstairs and said, let's go. It's cold up here. I don't want to be up here. And so then they went to bed. All right. So here we go. That night, she got up gently. It was in the middle of the night. She got up gently, sat motionless beside the bed, listening to her husband's breathing. Marcel is asleep. All right. She gets up and she goes outside. She walks out down the street, and she starts to go back to this rooftop. She wants to go to the rooftop terrace, and so she starts to go up. She's going up the stairs. The air burned her lungs with such cutting effect that she wanted to stop. Final burst of energy hurled her despite herself onto the terrace, onto the rooftop, against the parapet, which was now pressing her belly. She was panting and everything, breathing hard. It was hazy before her eyes. Her running had not warmed her. She was still trembling all over, but the cold air she was gulping down soon flowed evenly inside her, and a spark of warmth began to glow amidst her shivers. Her eyes opened at last on the expanse of night. So she's on a rooftop, looking out into the desert. All right, out there, vast. Okay. After a moment, however, it seemed to her that the sky above her was moving in a sort of slow gyration. In the vast reaches of the dry, cold night, thousands of stars were constantly appearing, and their sparkling icicles, loosened at once, began to slip gradually toward the horizon. Janeane could not tear herself away from contemplating those drifting flares. She was turning with them, and the apparently stationary progress little by little identified her with the core of her being. She's having very much an existential moment right here, where cold and desire were now vying with each other, okay? Gyration's like circular, all right? I mean, people, when they go out on the dance floor and they're booty dancing, they're gyrating, all right? This booty dancing like gyration is filling her with desire. And before her, the stars were falling one by one and being snuffed out among the stones of the desert. And each time Janeane opened a little more to the night, all right, she's opening herself up, breathing deeply. Once again, this deep breaths, just like with Janeane, with Miss Mallard, with her bosom rose and fell tumultuously. She's breathing deeply. She forgot the cold, the dead weight of others, the craziness of stuffiness of life, the long anguish of living and dying. After so many years of mad, aimless fleeing from fear, she had come to a stop at last. At that same time, she seemed to recover her roots, and the sap again rose in her body. Sap, fluid. Sap is the life blood of a tree. This is her blood rising and flowing in her body. Sap equals blood. The blood is going through, just like in the story of an hour, the coursing blood warmed and relaxed every inch of her body. The same thing here about warming her and the sap, which had ceased trembling. Her whole belly pressed against the parapet as she strained toward the moving sky. Okay? She was merely waiting for her fluttering heart to calm down and establish silence within her. The last stars of the constellations dropped their clusters a little lower on the desert horizon and became still. Then, with unbearable gentleness, the water of night, and we have the water equals salvation, rebirth. The water night began to fill Janeane and drown the cold. Cold rose gradually from the hidden core of her being. It's rising up out of her. All right? Which is just like here we have with Miss Mallard creeping out of the sky, reaching toward her. It's filling the air. It's the same thing that's happening to Janeane. All right, it drowned the cold. It overflowed in a wave after wave, rising up even to her mouth, full of moans. Okay, so we have the same exact thing. Orgasm. Hello. Once again, Camus makes it a little bit more sexual, all right, but it's not sexual though. Once again, it's being. It's the most heightened emotional reaction person could have. Okay, so she has an orgasm, just like in Story of an Hour. But instead, though, at the very end, she goes back down through the room. She goes through the room. She goes back down. She lays down. Okay, she drinks mineral water, not wine. Mineral water, okay? Mineral water, salvation, rebirth. And then she begins to weep. But she's not weeping sad, copiously. Okay, in case you can't see it, copiously. This means with abundance. Abundance, all right? This is positive. All right, copiously is a good word. Positive, abundance. It's like you want like a copious season of crops, all right? You have it in abundance. This crying is a emotional release, all right? It's like when people cry out of joy. They're so happy that they're crying, okay? So she's crying joyfully because she has what? She has rediscovered herself. Okay? She's rediscovered herself. That's why she is crying. All right, so let's real fast break these two things down in comparisons. These are similar stories. Okay. Story of an Hour equals Miss Mallard only had freedom for an hour. Okay? And then she died. The Adulterous Woman equals she committed adultery on herself for so long. Okay? She cheated on herself by giving too much of who she is to her husband. Okay? She cheated on herself. All right? Albert Camus is all about the first person that you should love and that you owe yourself to is yourself. Okay? All right, comparisons. Okay? We have housewives. Janeane and Miss Mallard. We have rooms. Okay? Miss Mallard's is warm, comfy, refreshing, rebirth, emphasizes her salvation, that kind of thing. Janeane equals, all right. It also, there is a, so with Miss Mallard's, okay, hold on, there's a window, there's rain, all right, there's trees. Janeane, there is a cracked window that hints access to water and trees and life, okay? Which represents, look, Miss Mallard's room, she's experiencing these things because she thinks her husband's dead. Janeane, she doesn't have those things yet. It foreshadows the ending, okay? Housewives, rooms, and then another comparison, orgasms, yeah. Miss Mallard equals in her room when she thinks she is free. Janeane on the roof when she realizes she can be free while still married. All right, that's the gist of those. If you need some further clarification, I know these are kind of, I mean, they're partly rushed, they're partly not because each of these are like 20 minutes long. Let me know, okay? And I can provide some more explanation through email if you need anything.